we'd like to do today is I have 10 questions here. I'd just like you to answer as honestly as possible. They're not very difficult questions. Most of them are pretty straightforward, and we would love to just hear what you have to say. I don't expect you to have a perfect memory of everything that happened then. It was over 10 years ago, so I definitely I won't blame you if you don't remember everything, but some of these will be pretty straightforward. What do you think about that?
Well, we'll see what the questions are first. You know, you get contact with some
Oh, that's him. Hell yeah.
So.
Well, I figured somebody who was involved in To Catch a Predator would know that, right? Nothing very personal. If at any point, though, there's a question you don't want to answer, that's fine. We'll just skip it. But
Okay.
I'll start with something pretty simple. Why don't you first introduce yourself, say your name and your current job title.
John Dudinsky. I'm a detective in Kentucky.
Man,
Describe your law enforcement.
Do detective work, handle everything, forge money, bad checks.
Very cool. What is your professional history from the time you graduated college till now?
Okay, I didn't go to college first. I was a military policeman. Then I became a Frankfurt policeman. After 4 years in the military, I served 17 and a half years with the Frankfurt Police Department in Kentucky, and retired with the rank of captain.
Wow.
The reason I retired so early was I bought 10 years of time. They allow you to buy time. So I bought my military time and some ghost time.
Okay.
So I reached a point where I was making more to stay making more if I left than if I stayed. So I went to the Attorney General's office, and 2.5 years there. I worked Medicaid fraud and abuse, elder abuse, and they moved me over to public corruption.
Pretty interesting career.
Got a little tired of doing that, so I went to the Department of Highway Safety, where I taught classes on motorcycle and so forth safety. Missed investigations, went back to work for the Office of Inspector General in Medicaid fraud. Medicaid kept drawing me in, but I'll tell you the truth, I hate Medicaid. And ended up as their branch manager of the Commonwealth of Kentucky's welfare fraud unit.
Someone should
law enforcement had worked it out with
someone should insert Dustin's laughs at every joke.
Or just put just being honest with you in there.
As a detective for 6 months before the current job I'm in offered me a little more money and a little quieter town to work my retirement job in. So I came here to Eminence, Kentucky.
Eminence?
Okay. How long were you with the KBI?
Just 2.5 years.
Just enough time.
And you enjoyed your time with them?
TCAP.
Right? I did.
Why don't you tell us about your interactions with the Dateline NBC crew? Did they interfere heavily, or were they keeping a respectful distance?
Say that one more time. Did they interact? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. So when it came to Dateline NBC, were they heavily interfering with the procedures in the station, or were they keeping a relatively respectful distance?
As far as I could tell, they kept a respectful distance. The only ones I really ever interacted with, I only met Chris Hansen for like 20 minutes in the gym when I was working out.
Did Chris have his boxing gloves on?
The only guy I interacted with at all really was the set man, who, and only because I sought him out, I was interested. They had a lot of hidden cameras. And because I'd worked narcotics with wires and cameras and stuff, I was interested in what they did. And he would show me what he puts together. But as far as them involving themselves in the actual investigation I was doing, I didn't see much of them except their cameras.
Okay.
But now keep in mind, I wasn't at the higher levels where my job was to interview or to be on a chase car, stuff like that. So I wasn't interacting with them like the commissioner was and so forth.
Yes, I remember he did like some sit down interviews with the Dateline team.
Right. I never felt though that our commissioner was being run by them.
I didn't get that vibe either. In most cases, the stings in the investigation sort of they were working as much in tandem with law enforcement. Not one was overshadowing the other.
That's good to hear, right?
Which not only made for some great television, but put a lot of bad guys behind bars. So,
right.
Why do you think that so many of the men caught on the show, especially in the Kentucky sting, were so willing to talk with you and the other investigators without lawyer representation?
Because they're morons, complete and utter idiots and morons, on top of being perverts.
I don't know. I just think the same reason they all seem to want to talk to Chris Hansen is they just want to come up with some excuse why they're there. They know they're had. So the best thing I think they can think is, okay, I got to come up with a better story than what they've got on the internet on me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's kind of like a kid. If you catch them doing something, they're going to come up with the best lie they can for the reason they're doing it.
And it's often not very convincing, is it? As we heard, we've been reviewing some of the old the footage and investigations and interrogations with some of the guys and some of the things they come up with.
Even the detective said it. What did he say, guys? When he asked him why, what did he say? He already know that they know that they're what? John Jameson?
They're had.
You've been took. You've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok.
One of these days, I'm waiting for you to sneak in Dave Chappelle from Men in Tights in there.
Which one?
He does the same speech in Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Really? I don't remember that. And I thought I remember the whole movie.
Oh, yeah, he puts the glasses on and everything.
Oh, okay. I gotta now I gotta watch that again.
Ridiculous. Why don't you tell me? Did you have any special roles that were varying because of the investigation going on with Dateline NBC? Were you taking on any sort of special role or doing anything you wouldn't normally do? And how were you briefed about like the suspects before they came in? Was it again just like every other time you've ever dealt with a suspect, or was there some sort of like special etiquette that was going on?
No, I'll be honest with you. Now on that one, that was the
oh my god, he just folded
He's quoting Dustin.
In the past,
you heard that too, guys? I was taking a drink.
I'll be honest with you.
But mainly my job for the first 2 nights there, I was working on a rest team and not interviewing anybody. And then they asked me if I would mind interviewing because I was in chase car. Actually, I was having an easy time of it, not dealing with any of it. But they'd asked me if I would do some interviews for them. So it just happened. That one was the one I ended up with, McFetrich, I think his name is.
Mm-hmm.
And
Justin, I think his name is Justin.
I interviewed him just like I would anybody else. Nobody ever asked me to ask a particular question. That interview, honestly, was purely the way I interview about every single person in my life. When they introduced me what was going on, they gave us a pile of chats. That was the only one out of I had 5 or 6 they were talking to. So the only thing you got information on was you would probably get a driver's license, like a photo and stuff, and the chat logs. And because you know my history with computers, I never even seen a chat log before this stuff.
Wow.
Because our cybercrime stuff, that was downloading pictures and getting stuff like that. So you could interview them about that. I never dealt with chat logs before, and I started reading them. I didn't realize all that stuff was even going on. I guess I was a little behind the times on computers. But in any event, I read all the chat logs that I was assigned, and when I went in there, I guess it's noticed that I called him the wrong name several times. So
we always speculated that.
Justin?
Oh man. So you know that like he's probably gone back and looked at all the reactions to him being on there. That is classic.
That was a tactic to make him uncomfortable.
No, that's a Dudinsky thing. I coach a lot of baseball, and whatever kid looks like, I call them, or if it's closer to their name, I'm happy. I'm not real good on names. And
so Dustin just looks like a Dustin. He just got to look about the eyes. Looks like a Dustin.
I'm happy you actually remember quite a bit about Dustin. I was going to ask you, what is it you remember most about him, and how did you react to learning about his disability? Did that at all play a role in how you were approaching him as a suspect? Did you know to play into something with that, or did you just, like you said before, treat it like you would any other suspect?
Well, what I did was I did chats. I saw him coming in. And what I try and do, and you can't always do it, I got lucky in that instance, is I start to measure up the person as I see them come in and try and figure out their personality just on what I see or what kind of words I'm reading. And I approach my interviews like that. I teach an interview class, and one of the things I teach everybody is before you interview the person, learn everything you can about that person. In that case, you don't have as much time on Dateline NBC because it's the first time you're seeing them, rather than if you're working a case and building a case. But so he was interviewed based on what I saw of his personality.
Does the name Lorne Armstrong ring a bell?
I've seen his name connected with To Catch a Predator, but I have no idea who he is.
We're curious if you had any interaction with him.
I have watched it.
Isn't he the lucky one?
The video of me once or twice because somebody sent me something where they looked at the read technique or something and compared it to what I did. And I've never been to read training, so apparently I was using the read technique and didn't know it. I just interviewed just by
anyone
asking.
doing any type of anything. Always have, what is it called, that foam thing on your microphone. So you don't hear how he goes, that noise really, really loud. Ugh. You know what I mean?
But the read technique, is that the Catherine Reed technique?
Is it? Maybe.
Questions I want to know. So
Well, it's a combination of a lot of things, but Lorne Armstrong specifically has sort of not only his interrogation and his involvement in the sting, but what he's done after the fact has sort of caused this renaissance resurgence of interest in this show again, and has led a lot of people to revisiting old footage, including your interview with Dustin and the guys that were caught on the Kentucky sting and all of the Dateline NBC sting. So it's hard to describe because the footage itself the show is old. It's past its time. Most of these guys have served their sentence or are still in prison. But there's still this curiosity.
That's what I can't understand the interest in this.
It's an interesting character.
And that's coming from the cop who was there. So I don't know why y'all are so darn interested in this damn thing. That is hilarious. It is crazy, like trying to explain your interest in TCAP to people that have never watched it. You know what I mean? Or have like
I've had to have that awkward conversation a couple times in my life.
Hey man, TCAP is like anything that not a lot of people watch. It's like people who don't like anime. I don't know why you watch that. Look, you know what? No one's asking you to. How about that?
The answer I always give people is that it's because it's the realest thing that's ever been on TV.
Yeah.
You're catching somebody on film the exact moment they realize that they're committing the one crime that is like universally panned across most of the planet.
When they realize that their life is
like
never
that's
gonna
real
be the same again, ever.
That's real emotion. Like you can't act that. You can't get that on Survivor or some reality show. Like this is the realest thing that has ever been on TV, and that's
You
why
paid for your whole
think
seat,
they're-
but you'll only need the edge.
But I've had that discussion with an ex-girlfriend before, where you have to explain why certain expressions are funny to you.
Yeah, that's true. Or even when you've seen the footage where Chris Hansen comes out, and you still get that feeling right before, hey, come on in. You're like, oh fuck, here it comes.
I mean, it's like
so crazy, man.
The orgasm of it all is really like a millisecond moment when they first realize that they're being caught.
Oh man.
Like the look on their face, like you can't pay money to get that look. Like
The rabbi's a perfect example of that.
Oh yeah, dude, he was shook, man. Guys, I saw this thing on TikTok, and this knucklehead was like, "Oh, white kids shouldn't use terms like lit and shook and all." What are you talking about, dude? Are you serious? Like, this has gotten out of control, man. Like, or Josh, you lived in the DMV. You've heard go-go music, right?
I'm not sure what you're referring to by that.
EU,
I know what a go-go bar is.
Go-go is like, you know who EU is? Doing the button. Oh, sexy. Ain't nothing wrong.
You have to remember that I lived in Richmond, and the iconic artist of Richmond that they have a fest for every summer is Guar.
Oh yeah. Well, anyways, so go-go music is a type of music that's it's like R&B or whatever, but or like soul music, but it's its own sound. So there is a Japanese girl who her band, like there was footage of her on TikTok, and they're getting down singing go-go music in Japan. Like they were doing pretty good. And people were like, I don't know how I feel about this. She's a culture vulture. She's in Japan. She was at a college here.
I don't know. I feel like I can't really speak on it being white, but how I would interpret it when I try to imagine if I was a person of color is that I would be flattered by it.
Yeah, that's what I say. The fact that this girl came here to DC, heard this music, went through the trouble of learning it, and then actually started a band. It's like, so here, no one of any particular group or culture or race, we should all be doing our own stuff, and no one else should ever learn it and do it. That makes perfect sense.
So when you refer to go-go music, you're not referring to the Go-Go's.
No. But yeah, I don't understand.
Bummer.
This whole cultural appropriation stuff has to stop, man. There's even people saying that, like, if Jameson has a TikTok and he cooks, that if you're white, he shouldn't cook Mexican food or cook Vietnamese food because that's cultural appropriation. Like, you're cooking. What are you talking?
I've been out at bars in Brooklyn and no one has said verbatim like cultural appropriation, but they've insinuated that because I'm wearing Yeezys, I'm trying to culturally appropriate.
Oh yeah, because we all know that the majority of Yeezys are bought by black people. Wrong. The majority of anything is bought by white people. Oh yeah, and if that's the case, Kanye might have invented them, but who actually really makes Yeezys? Honestly, it should be like the sweatshop where workers in Asia saying, "Hey, stop wearing our shoes." But it's ridiculous, man. And then if you honestly,
although I have converted to Kyrie's recently because I love him.
Or what I'm saying is, if you think about like America, like mainstream America, I'm sorry to say it, I'll say this as a black person, mainstream Americana is white culture, guys. That's how it works. So if we want to claim cultures, there's a whole lot of things that blacks and Asians and stuff couldn't be doing that white Americans have contributed culturally. That's just how it works. You know what I'm saying? So I digress.
I believe.
I just want to
It's a character
apologize.
study.
Huh?
I want to apologize if I sound a little funny. I've been drinking this local clear whiskey, so I'm a
Clear
little
whiskey.
intoxicated.
That's fine.
You sound great, man.
It's a
Thanks.
psychological character study. You're witnessing somebody on their worst day of their life and watching how they react and how they try to wiggle out of things, whether or not they do own up to things. And then after the fact, years later, you'd think if you were on this show, you would want nothing to do with the internet ever again.
Oh, what's even crazy is, you talk to like Luna, who lives in Germany, right? She said that in Europe and all these places where you have like Poland and France and Germany, all these cultures that have huge differences that like live near each other, you don't hear the Europeans or even in like Africa and stuff calling, saying anything about cultural appropriation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, at all. because they shit, like they're so close to other cultures that they know that people adopt different things.
There are a lot of social media problems that are uniquely American.
Well, no, it's not about social media. It's once again that America, Canada.
Well, social media is the medium through which it's primarily propagated.
No, it's because we have a different racial and ethnic standard here that's unique to almost anywhere else in the world. We are all Americans, even though we're different ethnicities, right? So if you're in Poland, Polish culture is Poland, right? But technically, America, there is no American culture, language, or religion.
Or the 4 countries like America, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia?
Yes.
Those are the only 4 that don't. The indigenous population doesn't rule, right?
Have the historical ethnic majority in charge. Because if you look at the UK, England in English is a people. They're a nationality, they're a language, and they've been there for thousands of years. The Scots, the Welsh, you know what I'm saying? The Irish, But America, if you come here from anywhere, you are American. And nowhere else in the world does that happen. If you and I and Jameson moved to Poland, we could even get Polish citizenship, but we will never be Polish. If we were to move to Senegal, we will never be Senegalese, ever. That's not how it works, But that's why they call us the American, quote unquote.
But when they refer to anybody with citizenship as a Pole?
No.
Are you sure? Because I really want to tell some Polish jokes.
Wouldn't somebody outside of Poland refer to anybody with citizenship as a Pole? I guess
they might call you like they would call me like African Polish and call you
or like a Polish national.
Polish.
Would that be
yes,
the
a
term?
Polish national, but you'll never be ethnically Polish.
Well, yeah, obviously
but that's what I'm talking about. Is a majority of people in Poland are ethnic Poles. They're Polish.
But the issue is like the majority of the people in the world don't understand the semantics that we're talking about
because
this is a very high level conversation.
But it's not. Because they don't have
it shouldn't be, but it is. Most people don't understand the difference between
they don't understand it because they don't
and nationality
because
and
they don't have to. If Norway is 98% Norwegian, why would you have to understand this conversation?
No, I'm just talking about in America.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is we live in this unique spot, but we look at the rest of the world through our lens. To our own detriment, right? If you're in China, guess what? Imagine you, me, and Jameson walking through a village in China. The kids would be like, "What in the world? Look at that big black guy and those 2 white guys. What are they?" Because a lot of times they don't even see people.
Who's that white guy that looks like Jesus?
Or my friend has bright red hair, and she did this. No, it was a girl that I was sitting next to on the plane once, and she was in Senegal or Kenya or whatever for the Peace Peace Corps, and she would go to these villages, and she would be walking back to her little hut thing, and all the little kids, like 8 to 12-year-olds, would be following behind her to get a look at her. Then she turned and she would turn her head, and they would all run away because they were so scared of her.
I guess I should just defer to your opinions because I've never been west of Chicago or east of Montauk.
Oh man, you got to travel, man. Traveling's fun, man. It's a lot of fun. So
you're preaching to the choir. I've been to Oregon.
See, at least you say Oregon and not Oregon.
I have been to the southernmost point in the U.S. though.
Oh really?
Key West.
Oh wait, I've been to Vegas too. No.
Yeah, I've been everywhere, man. I've been to. Let me see.
I mean, when you live in NYC, you've basically been everywhere when you walk down the street.
Nah, it's not the same because you're still the majority, man. You haven't lived anywhere where there's no people.
I'm not.
No.
Aren't whites a minority in Richmond, Virginia?
No, I mean for miles though, where you get off the plane, where you get on a bus.
Oh, dude, like. I walk into a deli. I'm the only white guy there.
Yes, I understand that.
Target. I am the only white guy there.
But then you turn on the TV, you see people who look like you. You look at the billboards. You look at the magazines. You still see people. I mean, what I'm saying is
definitely white appropriated for sure. I'm not arguing. I'm just talking about like. I'm definitely a minority in the neighborhood of Brooklyn where I live.
Yes, but that's one of the rare places. What I'm saying though is like if you were to be in like Senegal, where everyone's like staring at you like, whoa, what's this white guy doing here?
Oh yeah, no.
You would be treated differently by the color of your skin. It's a very, very different type of experience. Where it's like,
no, I'm not gonna argue that. I'm not arguing that. Like people are used to white people here, but it's still like I'm a pretty good people person, but it's still unnerving at times to like walk down the street and not see anybody of your own race, even though I've never had a negative experience in Brooklyn with anybody. So, that's just like my own anxiety because I was born white in America,
But that's anyone though. So for instance, I've lived most of my life in either predominantly Hispanic or predominantly white areas. Well, I would say predominantly white areas, right? So I've always known like you just get used to it over time, right? But what's interesting about traveling,
I think it's been like it's helped me grow as a person.
But like when you go to overseas, then I think that the difference between like you and me and Jameson being in like China or being in Argentina. Listen, hold on, listen, is that you would get stereotyped. We get stereotyped in a way that we don't, because we don't stereotype each other here as much. But when people they think, oh look, there's a bunch of Americans, right? And you get treated as a certain way, and it's hilarious. And then you truly understand. Like I really think that like a white person going to a village in Senegal or like talking to a bunch of guys in Romania can understand what it's
It would be akin to like an alien landing there.
Yeah. Or like going to Mongolia and walking into a bar and then being, oh, you're an American, so explain Trump to us. And you'd be like, what?
Some of the white people that have gone to like islands that have like tribes that are like not. They're like still like in a stone age and they like immediately get killed.
Yeah, like that knucklehead that was trying to evangelize to those people and they were throwing anyways. And then we need to get his body back and the authorities like, good luck. We're not having them shoot some arrows at us. I don't think so. But anyways, I digress.
And would never engage anybody about this. But some people, Lauren included, tried to build a community off of his infamy, tried to gain a following, tried to make money off of his infamy. I kid you not. A sex offender caught on the show was trying to use his notoriety to start a YouTube channel to get people to pay to watch him sing karaoke and cook
like a rhinestone cowboy.
I loved her first.
There it is.
I held her first.
Are you telling me you wouldn't buy Lauren's workout video?
Oh no! Or his Christmas album, or whatever he had. Oh,
Cook things.
Well, that's a good thing about the internet is nuts find each other.
You are certainly correct.
That's pretty much the perfect way to sum up the internet.
That is so true, guys. That is so true.
Nuts find each other.
Especially when they're addicted to the internet.
Seriously, are you addicted to the internet? Please.
It's about that. And you wouldn't believe it, but old Lauren found himself in jail again not too long ago. Probation violations, quite a few actually. He's out now, but we'll see how long it takes him to get back into the community again. He just can't seem to stay out. I mean, they touch on this. Chris does a lot of the times in his interactions, whether or not they have an addiction or a compulsion to the internet. And I definitely believe Lauren does.
Oh yeah.
I think you already touched on this before, but I just wanted to ask one more time. Do you believe that for such an unusual case as this was, an internet televised news sting, that all the cases were handled with the same amount of care you would treat any other suspect and processed to the fullest extent of the law? Do you feel like justice was served across the board?
That's a tough question.
Well, as far as the law enforcement,
That's a great
the way
question.
they acted, or as far as the courts acted?
Well, that's a good thing to differentiate from. How do you feel that your KPI team had acted versus what the courts did?
Well, here's how I can put it to you. I don't follow. If I arrest somebody and I'm in court to hear the sentence, I still don't know what Dustin McFetridge got. I look at it all the time as I did my job. Courts will do their job, and I don't get mad about it. I don't get upset about it. I'm just indifferent because I know I've got a job to do, and I'm just going to do my job. So I can't even tell you what he got.
Oh, interesting.
But I can tell you this, that
Bill Belichick
in the KBI's cases of what I've seen of the show, every officer in there worked as if they were actually working alone in a room in a case.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that anybody was playing anything up for a camera or anything like that, or treating anything.
You mean the guy in the ghillie suit wasn't playing things up for the camera?
Well, that wasn't in Kentucky, though.
Differently. I know nobody wants to be embarrassed on TV, so they might have been more guarded with their words or something.
Mm-hmm.
And as you can see, I'm usually not like that. I don't have much of a filter, so it didn't affect me any. But I see shows, and it's just not this one. I see shows where cops are like Live PD or something like that, where I feel as though they're playing things up for a camera. I don't think that happened in our instance, but I think in a few of these shows, I think from what I'd seen of different shows, I think that maybe they might have been doing a little bit more than what they would have done on an actual call. I don't want to badmouth other cops. I don't know their personalities, but I've seen one. I'm like, why are you even doing that? You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. There are people. Anybody will behave differently if there's a camera on them. Like that. Thinking to the sting and just your entire career in law enforcement, I'm curious to know, what are some creative excuses you've heard from suspects over the years?
Here we go.
Well, in this area, I didn't work a lot of this, but I just when I watch these shows, or I watch other people's interviews or my own, I don't know if there was one that really stands out as super creative. There was one of them pedophiles that I really wanted to get so I could interview.
One of them pedophiles.
Him, and he didn't show up.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to hear his excuse because he was a youth pastor.
Ooh.
But it had starting from the beginning to the end of every grooming aspect you could think of. You know, it went from "you need Jesus" to finally at the end, "I love you and I'm going to marry you."
Well, Dudinsky, whether it makes sense or not,
I was just here to test it. I was here.
God is my savior. That is the truth.
And okay, let's just have sex. So I wanted to meet that fella and hear his excuse, but pretty much they're all creative. All, you know, it's the same 3 or 4 stupid reasons all the time. I was mentoring. I was looking to take care of them. If, you know, I wouldn't have done anything. I was just showing up because they needed a friend.
Look at how I dress. I'm very professional, sir.
You know, none of them were ever going to do anything, but they drove 200 miles and not do it. So I guess all the excuses is probably not too colorful for you. I just tell you the truth.
Well, they all say the same
they're all
thing, right, guys?
excuses. You know, you were sitting there with your chat log. And I never, when I did them.
What's that?
Perhaps he hasn't heard the excuse of, I came by to tell her I wasn't coming by.
Oh, like Rob Klein.
I was just testing it. That's all. I knew what this is. With
KBI that were not videotaped, I never got any excuses really, except either the mentoring aspect or the friend aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty much it.
Well, Dustin wanted to marry her, and I'm surprised you didn't grant him the request of when he gets out of there, he can go home and delete all the child porn from his computer because he's been meaning to do that. I'm surprised you didn't go for that.
Ethan, what's up, man? Yeah, this is Officer Dudinsky, man. Yeah, we're checking out the interview.
Yeah, this interview happened probably like 5 years ago with Heisenberg White, who was a prominent member of the TCAP community. I'm not sure if he is anymore, but he was at the time.
Yeah.
Jeez, he's certainly a wolf in sheep's clothing. That Dustin sure comes off pretty innocent. But you, I mean, not only having talked to him, but read his chat log, you know just what kind of monster these guys are. And that actually leads me right into my next question. Do you believe there is any helping somebody who's as far gone as Lorne or Dustin or John Wesley Elliott, who are people that were engaged in a sexual chat online with a minor, possessed child pornography, attempted to create child pornography, and attempted to meet and or abduct a child? Like, is there any helping somebody like that?
No.
Well, I would always hope that there is. But I just don't know, because I know
you've got to be politically correct here.
Your mind wants, you know, and
hold on.
I don't know. I don't see the draw. I don't see the interest myself. But obviously,
you know, he just might be an optimistic person, because the fact that he can say this after all these years in law enforcement, maybe he's just one of those people that tries to see the good in people. I don't know how. But he might be one of those guys. You know, who knows?
That's what somebody would be drawn to. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Guys, drop a like on the stream, and the Cash App's at the bottom if you want to support the channel. Let's go.
If they could ever stop being drawn, but maybe they could learn to, you know, control themselves and know that the penalty isn't worth what they're going to be doing. So I don't know. I don't really have an answer on that I can say for sure. That's for probably.
He's quoting Dustin again.
That's a good point.
I don't have an answer for that.
From a law enforcement point of view, where, I mean, of course, the ultimate goal is rehabilitation. You know, hoping that through due process in the judicial system, it acts not only as a deterrent, but as a form of, you know, reformation to transform criminals from out of their criminal patterns. And you know what, in most, I would say almost in most cases of guys caught in the history of the show, most of them have not reoffended, at least to my knowledge. Some are very obviously never going to learn their lesson, but because of their sex offender status now, it's a lot harder for them to violate the terms of their probation and get in trouble like that. You know, they're banned from the internet. And if all the good that comes out of it is you've taken away the means of a bad person to prey on somebody, then I think that's mission accomplished. Even if that person has never really learned their lesson, as long as they don't have the means to reoffend and, you know, recommit the crime, then I think that's a job well done.
Very well
I only have kind of like 1.5 more questions here. This will go back to what we were talking about in terms of interrogation. What are some interrogation tactics that you use when dealing with a suspect? What do you find that almost always seems to work versus some strategies that are more of a case-by-case basis?
I'm just going to tell you my interview idea right now, and it's never changed. It's always the same. And here it is. It's really hard. I ask the questions I want to hear answers to. If I know they're telling me the wrong answers, I ask them a different way. And I look at it as a tree. And the first answer they give, we're going to have to build on that answer and go to another branch and another branch. They can lie all day to me. You know, I've been to a lot of interview classes where they teach you're going to look up and to the right, or you're going to watch your body language. You and I, everybody in the world who pays any attention to humans knows when somebody's lying to them. Mm-hmm. The answer is they're only going to confess when you can get them to confess. And that means that they have to be ready. Nobody's going to confess. You can't make somebody confess. So my thought is when I'm building that tree limb, I go up the tree, I go to the first limb. They told me a lie in the trunk, on the mast of the tree. They've told me another lie. Now we're out on a limb. My theory is I just keep asking more questions, because eventually either they're going to trip up and they're going to have to come clean, or they're going to tell such a story that no judge or jury will ever believe it happened the way they said it happened. Mm-hmm. In other words, if something's out of the ordinary in an interview, I keep keying in on that part. And then they have to add another lie to cover their unordinary part, which makes it out of the ordinary again on another section. So before you know it, they have I liken it to.
It's a very good explanation.
Yeah, that's true. They're sitting in a living room alone.
That's pretty much what happens in every TCAP.
They're the only one in the room. You know, I'm talking about 3-year.
Say that again?
That's pretty much a textbook definition of what has happened in every TCAP police interrogation we've seen.
That's true. Very, 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 very true.
4-year-old. Mm-hmm. And you say, okay, well, then how did it get spilled? Well, a monkey came running through here and hit it. Okay, well, we know that isn't true. So, but I'll go with that. How did the monkey get in? Well, he opened the window. Okay, well, it's locked from the inside. Well, monkey locked it back. Every story you get from a kid like that, and suspects are the same way. Anybody who has something to hide can't keep it up forever. Something's going to be out of the ordinary of what they normally do or what human nature is, and that's where you got them. You got them right there.
Wow.
Because at that point, they're either going to confess because they're going to realize how stupid this sounds, or they're going to go to a jury and you're going to play the recordings or talk about the interview, and the judge and jury aren't going to be fooled because they're humans too. And they go, wait a second, I wouldn't go around the block 4 times before I showed up at this person's house, or whatever the story is. Mm-hmm. People do what people do, and that's the way I interview. I interview on what people do. And, my wife hates that I say this, and I know it was said in that interview because she actually, former language teacher, pointed it out and points it out every time I say it.
Very interesting. Huh.
That don't make no sense. So when it don't make no sense, I keep asking harping on
that. It doesn't wash.
It just doesn't wash, Justin.
Well, that's my interview technique, and that's what I use with every single person, regardless. Now, when I decide what type of person they are, depends on how those questions are asked. Somebody who thinks they're in charge of the world, I'll handle it where I've got the upper hand in that. Somebody who's a little more sympathetic type person, who's meek and mild, I adjust accordingly to their personality. But at the end of the day, all the questions are the same. I want to know what happens. Either you're going to tell me or you're going to tell me some convoluted, goofed up story that is never going to make sense to anybody.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, John, I got to say, this has been fantastic. I'm going to turn it over to AJ to see if he has any questions before we sign off. But
let's see. Do I have any questions?
My last thought, I just have to ask.
I gave up my lunch break for you, so I hope you appreciate it.
Wow, that's fantastic. This will be wrapped up soon.
I'm gonna be starving.
I gotta know, when you sat down with Dustin and he said, "I don't like lawyers," what was going through your head?
Well, I like lawyers myself, but you know, a lot of good friends of mine are lawyers. But if a suspect doesn't like a lawyer, I'm kind of happy to hear that.
Yeah.
As evidenced by that entire. I mean, he ended up confessing to crimes that he wasn't even like being charged with. I think that's just owed to your ability as a interviewer and communicator to really make them feel comfortable enough to trust you. And boy, did it work. Again, I want to thank you again. AJ, did you want to add anything?
No.
Yeah, John, I just wanted to touch on one subject. You mentioned that prior to getting into the show, working with the show, you weren't really too familiar with these chat logs. You know, you haven't, really put your hands on some prior to the show. So my curiosity is, how has, we all know about predators. We've always known about them. They've come to light more because of a show like this and different people bringing awareness to it. So I'm just curious, how has your perspective or your awareness of predators and how much they're out there, how much has the show and, your experience on the show?
That's a really good question.
Working on the show, how has that affected and changed your perspective on predators?
Well, I never cared much for them in the first place, but the thing about it is that the thing I learned from the chat logs is that none of them are the same. They follow the same type of grooming processes, but some are quicker than others and some are shorter than others. But it has helped me later on learning that stuff about how they act to working crimes now. But things have changed so much. I came on law enforcement in 1990. And now I was just telling a guy this morning, because I had to call for codes on a phone that I'm downloading and doing a search warrant on right now. And I said, every single thing I deal with just about has a phone component to it, and texts and messages and snaps. And, it's just
snaps.
It's wild how it works. But the predator aspect of it, I don't look at chat logs anymore, but they're so easy for kids to get hooked into that. That's the scary part for me, I guess, being a dad, because I'll ask my son, he plays on these video games and he's talking to people, and of course he knows what he can say and what he can't say or something, but I'll actually question him, and I'll question him, does anybody ever show up on your, whatever app he has or whatnot, and start talking to you about anything, or my daughter, but so, it just, I'm in awe of it myself that people are that bold, because this day and age, like with the show, everybody's looking at you. Everybody's looking for you. They're doing, all this eavesdropping and looking for certain things. I know the cyber guys that told me what they look for, but I can't even describe it to you. It's too in depth for me, but you're going to get caught. What are the chances of some really gorgeous 15-year-old girl wanting to be with a 55-year-old guy?
Right.
Yes. Yes.
That's what I
How
was
can
saying.
they not know they're doing, they're going to get caught?
Guys, we have to make up a term for that TCAP pervert tunnel vision. You know what I'm saying? Like we need to coin this term, because they just enter into this mode with all these red flags, and they're still like, dude, you have to know this is
vision.
Predavision.
Yeah, that's what I said in the Discord.
Predavision.
It's gone from, the thing that bothers me about it is it's gone from the uncle who, and I'm not saying that's good, but in the old days, it was always the uncle or family friend or something like that. Now it's an anonymous person in another state asking the kid to come meet them in a different state. That's the scary part.
What do you think of, I don't know if you're aware, but there are groups online who do their own sort of hooking, sort of mimic what To Catch a Predator has established, and they draw someone in through their own, made up profile, and then
vigilante stuff.
Vigilantes. What do you think of those people, if you're aware of them?
Well, the only one I ever knew of was Perverted Justice. And I don't know. I don't know how much they always worked with law enforcement, but I'm not really a big fan of the groups of people doing stuff. I guess it would be based on individual group because I don't want anybody taking their law in their own hand.
That's what I always say too. That's why I don't review like a lot of the YouTube dudes that do this type of stuff. I got to look into them like a little more, but
they just don't. They don't have the interrogative skills for it to even be entertaining. That's the issue.
Other than that Asian guy who just wanted to poop.
Well, yeah, that's like the best non Chris Hansen related Predator video out there for sure.
And also too, like a lot of those dudes, and like a lot of these, I don't know, I don't want to say vigilante people, but a lot of them turn out to be scumbags too. You know
like the guy that caught that Asian dude that ran over the tree, like he had a background of like he had some other profile where he would post like prank phone calls where he would call like Black Lives Matter and just like say the N-word over and over again.
What?
Yeah, so
interesting.
You know, like a guy shows up and they beat his ass. That's you know,
I don't know
a guy shows up and
it may have been the guy that caught EDP 445.
Yeah, I think it was that guy. That guy's a tool bag, dude. Oh.
But there's some other skeleton in the closet for the poop predator too.
They've notified the police of all the chat logs, and then the police set up the actual arrest. I guess I could live with that scenario, but vigilanteism is never a good thing in my eyes right off the bat. But I guess it depends on how they're working it. If they're working it in conjunction with the police and letting the police know what they're doing,
as long as there's a conjunction junction, you'll be fine.
Don't have as big a problem, but still, I don't know if I'd want to be involved in that.
Okay. Well, I'm pretty satisfied. I think this was very enlightening, and I think this is really going to help us with our project. I'll be happy to keep you up to date as the project rolls along. Like I said, it's in its early infancy, but I want to thank you once again for joining us today. This was really, really special, and I'm glad we got to do this. Going forward, you have my contact information. If you want to follow up with anything, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I'm going to let you get back to your lunch, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening and the rest of your day. Take care.
All right, thanks. We'll see.